Hello everyone, I am Akshay. Today I am going to explain one of my project that I built from scratch, that is expense tracker using Spring Boot and React for frontend, and we have implemented JWT security. Let's start with the controller. So here we have two controllers, one is auth and one is expense control. In auth we have implemented sign up and sign in, and in expense controller we just have implemented other functionalities. So let me explain the auth controller. So in auth controller we have this method that is sign up, that means register. Okay. So for registration we are just taking the user object from the user. We are checking for the null, that is if username or password is null, then we just return the response entity as a bad request, and with the message username and password are required. And if the username and password are not null, then we are just saving it. We use encoder object to encrypt the password. Here we are taking encoder.encode user.get password. So this is the password we get from the user itself, and then we save it again in the user by encoded format, and we simply return the user service dot register user. So we call this register user from the user service. So we'll come to user service later. And if we got exception, then we simply throw the exception by saying 500 status 500 and sign up failed due to server error. Now let's come to the sign in. Sign in means login. For logging in, we similarly we take the request body from the user as a user. Here we make our own user, that is my user, and we fetch the details from our database, that is user repository.find by username, and we provide the username. So here we got our user which is from the database, and we have this user where we got this from our user. Okay, so here we just validate the password. That means encoder.matches user.get password. So this is password which is provided by the user, and this is my user, that is from the database. So if this matches, okay, so we are using not here. So if this doesn't match, that means it will enter this if loop, and we just simply say invalid password and bad request status code. So after that we simply load the user details here. Login service dot load user by username, and we provide we get the user from user.get username. We are taking the user details object, and we just simply load the user detail object here. Login service dot load user by username, and we provide the username with the help of this user, and it will return the user details object. So we have created the user detail object here, and we just create a string, that is JWT, and we generate the JWT by using this method generate token. That method is in JWT util. Okay, and then we just simply creating the map, and in this map we have added JWT as a key variable pair, and status as a status okay, and we return the response entity as a okay. And for if we get the error, then we just say catch all those error here. Okay, and for using this method like JWT login service, for this we just have to inject the dependency injection. So these are the dependencies that we have injected in this project. So now let's go to the expense controller. Similarly here we have added all those dependency that we require, and here it's all simple. Like if we want to add the expense, we just simply say expense service dot add expense service, and we pass the expense. Similarly, get all expenses, update expense. We call the service method to do all this stuff, delete, and as well as to get the total amount. Okay. So now before going to the service, I preferred going towards the config file. So in this config we have these three files. One is JWT filter, another is JWT util, and one is security config. So our first request will go here in the controller. So here it will check for sign up. So after getting the sign up, it will strike here, that is security config, and through this filter chain it will check, that is API / auth / star star, and I just provided S2 console. So if we hit this URL, then it says it's permitted. So for auth we have API / auth, and then we have sign up and sign in. That means we have authority to access these sites. So these two. So others are restricted. So what is this? So this is the filter chain. So every request go through this bean, that is filter chain. Okay, so what we are doing here, we are just saying disable the CSRF token. We are enable the cross configuration, cross origin with the custom configuration, and here we have authorized the HTTP request auth, and we say request matches. You can add any request that you want, and it will simply permit it with this permit all, and other requests should be authenticated, and here we handle the exceptions as well, and here the session management policy. Sessions should be stateless, and this is the handler to allow the S2 console to access handler dot frame options. Okay, so this is one of the important method. So what we are doing here, we are just saying http dot add filter before. So normally our this username password authentication filter is called. So we are saying we want this filter, this is custom filter, to get added before this filter, that is username password authentication filter dot class. Okay, and here we are using the bean to configure the cross configuration source, and here this is the password encoder bean. We are writing the bcrypt password encoder. Okay, now let's go to the JWT filter, this one. Okay, so what is this? So this is our custom filter that we are implementing. So if we have to extend this for by once per request filter, and after implementing this, we just have to rewrite this do filter internal method. So in this method, we are creating string objects, that is header, token, username. So header we are says request dot get header, that is authorization, and here we just check if the authorization header is present, and start with the bearer, that is this one, and we if that is present, then we just simply save this token, and as well as username, user JWT.get username from token. Okay, here we are just checking if username is found and the security context is already authenticated, that is null. So if this is true, then we just create a user detail object and assign this dot login service dot load user by username, pass this username, so we get the user details object. So here we are just validating the token, JWT token, and we have created the auth token, that is username password authentication token. Okay, so we pass here user details, this object credentials and collection of granted authority. So here we just pass all these things, and we said auth token dot set details, that is the web authentication detail source, and build details request, we pass this request, and we simply say security context holder dot get context and set authentication, and here we pass this authentication or token, and at last we simply do this filter chain dot do filter and request the response. Okay, so now let's go to the JWT util file. So this file is generally used to create JWT token. So important method is these two. See the generate token, and this method do generate token, where we are creating a map, that is claims, that is the key value pairs, and an object. So here we are just using JWTs, and with the help of builder dot sign with secret key. So this is a secret key, yeah, this one, this is a secret key, and signature algorithm is HS512, and with the help of this secret key we just build our own token, that is jwts.build.set claims, set the subject, set issue at, here set the time, and set the expiration, and along with that we added the algorithm, and we say simply compact and return the token. So that's how we generate the token. Similarly, we have several other methods like get username from token, get expiration date, get claims from token, get all claims, is token expired, and validate token. So these are the general methods in the JWT util file. Now let's go towards the DTO. So I have this expense DTO, that's a data transfer object. So I use these parameters to transfer my data, and for the entities I have this expense entity, I have ID, category, amount, comments, and this is the user entity where I join this by many to one. That means many expenses have one user, and along with that I have created it and updated it. Similarly, I have user entity. So in this as well, I have added ID, username, password, email, and this is the expense. Here I have this relation, that is one to many. Means one user can have multiple expenses, and this is a small constructor. Okay, so these are the important annotation in this as well. So this is the entity. We have to make a table of this class with these parameters. So that's the use of entity, and data is logbok annotation, where we don't need to add getters and setters, and these are the annotation for all our constructor and no our constructor, and similarly we use all this in this entity as well. So the service, we have expense service, and these are the dependencies that we require in this file, and don't forget this service annotation. So for adding the service, what we are doing, we are just simply creating a user. So I make a get current user method. So this is the method get current user. So in this method, what I am doing, I am simply creating a object variable, and with the help of security context holder, I am getting the principal from this, and then I am checking if the principal is this object is the instance of user details. So if I found this, then I will simply return the string, return the user detail principal dot get username. So this username I got this from this method. Along with that, I use this my user. I fetch my user from the repository, and here I am simply checking the username not found with the username, and throw the error. So I simply created a expense object, and in this expense object I am assigning all the values that I got from the expense detail, that is get category, get amount, get commit, and I have assigned the local date for creation and updation time, and I assigned my user to this expense. With the try catch block, I simply save with the help of repository. Okay, so now get all expenses. Here I simply create my user, and in this my user I fetch my user from the repository itself, and then simply return the expense repository dot find all by user, and I simply assign the user. And here as well, to get the total expenses amount, I have created a username with this same method, and simply my user from the repository, and I am using here a stream. So here my user dot get expenses and then dot stream, and I am simply mapping it to double expenses and get amount, and the amount that I get here, so I will sum it up with the dot sum method. So here I return the double amount, that is get total expenses amount, and going forward, so this is a update expenses method. So where I simply taking the expense detail and the ID, and making a simple variable the expenses. I fetch that variable from my repository, find by ID and I simply add the updated values, that is expense detail dot get category, get amount, and get commits, and local date dot now. I have updated this update time in the local date dot now, and simply by returning it I save it. Let's go to the login service. In this login service we have this method load user by username, and in this I have simply created a user with the help of repository, check for the null, then I return the new org spring framework security.core.userdetails.user. So in this way I am gonna get user details object. So for this I have passed username and user password, and with the also with the I have passed this empty list. So what is this empty list? This empty list is a granted of authorities. So, but for our project we don't have authorities. That means we don't have role-based login here. So therefore I am simply passing the empty list. But if we have the roles like user, admin and all, so then we have to pass over the list of the roles. So for now it's empty. Okay. In the user service I have this method register user. I am passing the user that I want to register, and first of all I am just checking if the user already exists or not. So with the help of this user I am trying to get that. It's like user repository dot find user by username and user dot username get username. So that's how if I get this user, then I will throw the exception, that is username user already exists conflict. Okay, and with the help of try catch block I am simply saying user repository dot save and return the response entity of created, and in the catch internal server error. Now let's go towards the repository. So we have expense repository, and in every repository we just have to extend this JP repository expense and their data type. Similarly, we have user repository. This is the extension. Now we will check our application.properties. So these are the application.properties where we have added name of our application. I added this port number, so this is default port number, so no need to add this line. And these 4 to 5 lines are to add the database. So I added the h2 database. So this is a URL, this is a class name. I added a username and password for the database, and I added the database platform. Along with that, I have added the h2 console.enabled. I enabled the h2 console, and the path is /h2 console, and I have added the DDL auto update. And for the security, I have simply added the name and password as admin. So this line also we don't need to add, so let it be. We'll check our pom.xml file. So in this file, this is the default file pom.xml, where we have added several dependencies. So just take a look at it. We have Spring Starter JPA dependency, Spring Security, Starter Web, and this I have added the S2 database dependency. I have added the Lombok dependencies. I have added the test dependency just to test it. And this is the JWT dependency, JWT API, JWT IMPL, and Jackson. These are the 4 dependencies for JWT. And this is the Spring Security test and a Lombok simply. Okay, so now let's check our project. To run this, we can simply right click on this expense tracker. So I am able to see the menu. So in your file you will also be able to see the menu. So in the video you won't be able to see the menu. So you can run this just by right clicking on the expense tracker app and then run as a Spring Boot app. And on the other way we have this, so we can simply with the help of this menu we can run this application. So let's check for the error. Okay, so our app is started, expense tracker, and on the port number 8080. So let's open the Postman and we test our API. So this is the Postman where we can add several requests. So firstly I have added the register request. For this, with the post, I have added this URL, that is localhost 8080 API/auth/signup. So I have added this URL in our controller, and to pass I have added a raw JSON body, and for this I have added username, password, and email. Username is user1, password is user1@123, and email is user1@gmail.com. So I will hit this button. Okay, so our user is created. So to check this, we have to go on the browser. In our browser, I will hit localhost :8080 and h2 console. So here the username is SA and password is password. We have added this password and username in our pom.xml file. So let's connect it. Okay, so we have connected. So to check the user, I click on this user and run the query. So I simply got this user in our s2 console. So as we are having this user, so we will try to log in. So for the login, same, I added the post request with this URL, API auth and sign in, and in the body I have added username and password. So let's hit the send button. So okay, so in the return we got the JWT token and the status, that is 200. So we have to copy this JWT token. Okay, and now we are login. So whenever we try to access other methods, other APIs, then at that time we have to use this JWT token. So here we will try to add our expenses. So for this, in the authorization, we have to go in the bearer token, and here we have to add our token. So I had copied it, so I pasted our token here, and in the body section I add this JSON body, category games, amount 3000, and even we can add comments. So the comment will say games. Let's hit the send button. Okay, so our expense is added now with this ID, category is game, amount is 3000, comment is null. Okay, so I have to add yes here. So comment is nullable, so we don't have to worry about it, and the created ad and updated ad time. So this is how we can add our expenses. Let's add the one more expense. We'll say petrol, and I will get 2000. I just add fuel here, and I will hit the send button. Okay, so our second request is also added. For the confirmation, we can again go here, select star from the expenses, and run the query. So here we have our data in the database. So comment is null here, and here our comment is fuel. We just have to, let's try get all the expenses. So here again in the bearer token we have to add our token first, and we don't need the body because the request is get, and this is the API. Let's send this. Okay, so we have added these two expenses and we simply got it, which is related to user 1. Let's take the get total amount. Here again it is a get request, so we don't have to add the body. The bearer token, I just simply add my token, send the request. So okay, so we got the 5000. So this is the total of our expenses, that is 3000 for the games and 2000 for petrol. So that's how we can do it. So lastly, we will check our delete API. I will add our bearer token here, and then we don't need body. So here I want to delete expense which have ID is 1. So let's hit it, and okay, success. So to check it, I will go to the database, that is browser. So here I will run this query again. So okay, so our one expense is deleted with the ID 1. So this is the expense with ID 2. So that's how we can do. Now we will try to update our expense. So expense with the ID 2. I want to update it with the hostel 7000 and rent as a comment. So first of all I have to add the bearer token here as well. Okay, then send. Yeah, so our Expense with ID2 has changes, category also change, amount also change, and commit also change. And take a look at it. So creation time doesn't change, but updation time would change. So that's how we can update our expense. So this is how our backend program is running. So to make it full stack, we have to make our front end application as well. So we will see that in our next video. Till then, bye bye.